I'm Marcy Barron, and this is Mondays with Marcy. I'm your homeward bound guide to everything 5D living. I can't wait to share with you tips and tools to guide your personal transformation so that you can live a life that thrills you. Hello and welcome to this week's Mondays with Marcy. Today we are talking about your inner child. And your inner child, whether you know it or not, is running the show in some aspects with your ego. And if you didn't listen to last week's recording, I invite you to about the ego. But what happens is the ego is keeping you safe, and because the wounds that you have from your childhood are constantly running an outdated and often dysfunctional program in your life. And it's the skewed lens in which you are viewing the world, the people, and the events around you. And I wrote this in my book. It can be a lens of abandonment, guilt, shame, sadness, unworthiness, fear, anger, or any other uncomfortable emotion that is rooted back in trauma from some past hurt. Now, this is what I often say. It doesn't go away until you deal with it. The big emotions that you feel, when you feel your emotion rising up, is often from childhood. It is deep-rooted pain, often from childhood, that's running the show. And your inner child is screaming out to be comforted and loved. So often we wonder why we are stuck in patterns that we can't free ourselves from. We don't understand why we can't move forward and attract all the wonderful things we desire. And so we all have a lot of unprocessed emotional traumas. And this can have a huge impact on our physical health. If you haven't watched the documentary Heal, it talks about how two women are suffering from chronic illness, and they discuss in that film how the unprocessed emotional traumas impact your physical health. The buildup of this energy literally causes dis-ease, and ultimately for many people, this is full-fledged chronic conditions or disease. And the mind, body and spirit connection is really talked about in this documentary. So I encourage you to watch that film. And the film's message is very hopeful that we have the power to heal our lives through our thoughts, our intentions, and retraining ourselves to understand that our symptoms, whether emotional or physical, they're trying to tell us something. And again, that's a lot of the work that I work with clients, and my ebook that is free on my website, Understanding and Diagnosing Your Spiritual Flu Symptoms. They are here to talk to you. Your symptoms are here to bring you a message about what you are holding in the body and very often not conscious of. So your inner child is trying to talk to you through your emotions. And if you listen to your inner child, you will understand what needs to be healed. You just have to have that awareness and have that intention and want to do the work and get curious. So here's a way that you can talk about or think about or get in touch with your inner child. And I'm going to give you another exercise because, again, I always like giving practical ways for you to go in. So let's say you feel triggered. Something big comes up for you and you're like, wow, I am feeling so much emotion here. And notice, just notice that emotion. Give yourself permission to feel the emotions. We're not bypassing here. You might feel a tensing in your body. You might feel constriction in your chest. Your stomach might drop and feel nauseous, and give yourself to go, wow, ooh, I'm feeling so uncomfortable in this moment. Wow, okay, anxiety is here. So just notice in your body where that is. And you can then, um, you know, understand what emotion is coming up. So maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's feeling unworthy, maybe it's triggering abandonment for you in that moment. So just notice, okay, something's happening in my body. I'm giving myself permission to feel it. I'm tuning into the feeling and notice the feelings, and you can just feel it, and you can, just notice in your mind. Don't make a big story about it. Just be aware that emotions are now flooding your body. And so when you get triggered and you're feeling this certain way, I want you to now look back into your childhood, and I want you to think about what happened in your childhood where you can first remember feeling this way. So, for example, l- last podcast, I spoke about this a little bit. I helped my friend sort out that she was telling a story that she had to cut off a friend because her friend had a different opinion. And then we went into the emotion. She felt sick in her stomach, and she realized that this was old. This is what her mother, when she had a different opinion from her mother used to gaslight her and tell her that it wasn't true, that what she was feeling wasn't valid. So she realized the first time she felt this way was when she was, I think, about 5 years old, she said, and she was in the car and she brought it all up. So, what I did with her is I took her back onto the timeline and said, all right, I want you to go and see your little girl, and we're going to do an exercise here. And she was like, okay, I'm ready. And I said to her, get down, go into that scene, and you're going to rescue your inner child. I want you to say to your inner child, and maybe for you, before we go into it, and I'm telling this in third person about my friend, maybe you could think about right now. Think about a recent time where you felt a lot of emotion flood your body. Maybe it was today, maybe it was yesterday, maybe it was this week. Something just came up, and just note it, bring that into your mind. And I want you to um, think about the first time you might have felt that way. And it might take a little bit of contemplation. Think about and just trust. And then I want you to just notice where you feel that feeling in your body. You're like, oh, okay. So when this happened, when I was younger, this is where all that energy went into my heart feeling really constricted and tight. And just notice that. And now I want you to see that happening as if it was really happening now in the present moment. And just witness, just watch your inner child right before the moment that happened. And I want you to walk into the scene with your angels, your guides, and I want you to get down on that child's level And it could be a child, but it could be your inner teenager. It might be you at a younger version of as an adult, but I'm going to speak for child's sake here. And I want you to say, I am you from the future, and I am here to bring you a message of healing and love. And just notice, what does your inner child do? How do they react? How do they respond? Maybe they're relieved. Maybe they're like a little standoffish and not comfortable. Just notice what comes up. And I want you to say what it is that your inner child needed to hear in that moment. So for my friend, it was, I am you from the future, and I am here to bring you a message of healing and love. And I want you to know that you can have your opinion, and it has nothing to do with what anyone else thinks, especially mom. Mom's doing the best she can, but I am here to support you now. I am here to witness your truth of who you are and what you feel and what you think. You are so enough, and I love you. And just notice that when you rescue your inner child on the timeline, when you show up and reparent in that moment where that trauma, where that belief and that feeling and that physical sensation become crystallized in your body, when you go and you reparent and show up with love and compassion and softness for your inner child, what changes? So just notice that. I'll give you an example from my own childhood and how I reparent my little girl, my 10-year-old, all the time. When I was 10 years old, I was standing out on the east end of Long Island on Montauk with my dad. And this woman who owned a boutique in our store came over to us, and she looked at me and she's like, wow, Marcy, you're beautiful. You could model for my store, but you need to lose 10 pounds. And I literally felt like I was kicked in the stomach. I was like, this was the first time that I ever thought about my weight. And my dad agreed with her. He basically just stood there and didn't say anything. And, again, whatever, he was doing the best he could, but that's what happened. And in that moment, I created a belief about myself that I wasn't good enough the way that I was, that my value was contingent and connected to how I looked and my weight. And when I lost that weight, 10 pounds, then I would be good enough. And it crystallized in my solar plexus chakra as not being good enough, worthy, confident, all the solar plexus stuff around confidence, worthiness, and self-esteem. So that's how it showed up for me. That is when the judgment that goes into my mind, when my ego, okay, so going back to last podcast, my ego is like, you're not good enough and you should look a certain way and you need to lose 10 pounds. And I go, it's okay, ego. I've got this. I am good enough exactly as I am, and all is well. And I go into my little girl, that 10-year-old girl who is like mortified, who knows exactly where she was standing, like it was like seared in my brain. I say, I am you from the future, And I am here to bring you a message of healing and love. And I want you to know you are good enough exactly as you are. You are perfect in your body. You are beautiful. You are worthy. And you don't have to look a certain way or be a certain way to know that you are so lovable and so enough as you are. And when I talk to my 10-year-old self that way, oh, she relaxes. She can receive those words. I have a daughter, and I know how to be a mommy to her that's loving and not judgmental. And so when I talk to my younger self that way, everything can relax. Everything can just go, oh, okay. None of that had anything to do with me. That was her projection of what beauty was. That was my father's projection of what good enough was. And none of that had anything to do with me. And I go back to Montauk every summer. It's one of my favorite places on the earth. I try to go back more than once a summer, but I went back to that place and retrieved the soul fragment that was there. So even if you go back to one of the earlier podcasts about past life and soul fragments, there was a piece of my energy that literally fragmented off, that dissociated, because I was just like in like horror of what I was being told. Um, and again, validated by my parent, you know? And so what was interesting is my whole life, he then fed me that story. He believed it and put so much value on my weight. And, then I'm just like, none of that has anything to do with me. It's not my story. It has nothing to do with me. I've gone in and rescued my 10-year-old self. I soothe her all the time when those judgments come up and my ego wants to separate me from my divinity. And I reparent my 10-year-old girl, constantly talking to her and saying, it's not true. I'm here. I love you. You are good enough exactly as you are. So, and when I look back at a picture of myself at 10, it's like, okay, wow. So just know that the people, parents, caregivers, teachers, siblings, friends, they are doing the best they can from their wounding. So they're very often projecting their limiting beliefs, their traumas onto you. And so everybody can then become innocent because everyone's doing the best they can. And I see those two people on my timeline like, you were doing the best you can. You thought you were helping me. And I am here now to show up for my inner child. It has nothing to do with anyone else. And every moment and every day and in every way, when I get triggered, no matter what it's about, I am comforting my little girl. So that is my invitation to you. When you get triggered, notice the first time it happened, go to that, feel the feelings, notice where it is in the body, give compassion and curiosity, and go to the first time you remember feeling it. And then go rescue your inner child. Go rescue. Because time is an illusion. Our focus is right here, right now. But that is still happening in some time space dimension. I know it was for me because I kept going back there. And until I rescued her, until I got her out of there, and until I was able to really come into soothing her the way that I soothe my own daughter, she was reliving that trauma over and over and over again around the judgment about, my own body and what I was eating and what I was doing and all the things. So I hope that this is helpful for you. This is something that you continuously need to practice. This is something that I do several times a day. I am constantly reparenting myself the way that I needed to be parented, unconditionally with love and acceptance, that I am perfectly imperfect exactly as I am. And that is my wish for you to come into rescue your inner child, because he or she is waiting for you to show up. Thank you. See you next time. Have a beautiful day. That's it for this week's episode of Mondays with Marcy. Be sure to subscribe to my newsletter at marcybaronclears.com. I also would love for you to follow me on your favorite podcasting app so that you don't miss a single episode. I'm Marcy Baron, and thanks for listening. I am so grateful you are here.